Q&A. That always freaks me out. Normally this is hosted by Dr. David Fawcett, but he's not available tonight. So you have Tami VerHelst and myself. This is a weekly live webinar with educational content on some aspect of addiction and recovery. I lost my sheet. Where'd it go? There it is. Usually we open with about 15 minutes of education, and I did prep something for tonight, followed by an open Q&A. This is your chance to ask Tami and I questions directly and anonymously. Just a reminder, this is not therapy. It's simply educational information to help support you. And just as a note, this is a webinar, so you'll only see Tami or myself. But we do record these. That's why you only see one of us. We post them on our website and also on our YouTube channel, which is called sexandrelationshiphealing.com. And I'm going to turn this over to Tami for a second because we have 3 new drop-in groups starting next week. And I'm going to
isn't that crazy? It's
Can I tell you about them real quick? Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot going on. So let me start with the first thing that's happening is Friday. There's a webinar. So right now, Scott, usually I sub every now and then. Matt Wheeler has been doing the Prodependence webinar. We have the complimentary week now. So Debbie McRae, who works with Kim Buck, who used to do them, but she's very familiar with the Prodependence, and she's going to do a great job. So please join us. It will be her first time. She might be a tiny bit nervous, but she knows the content in and out. She's been working with partners using Prodependence since the onset. So I'm really looking forward to having that back in our time slot. So Friday afternoons, 2:30 to 3:30 Pacific time, and it is posted on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. Then on Saturday, the next offering of Sex Addiction 101 Level 1 work group starts. That starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That is a paid, the webinar that I mentioned just a moment ago is a free offering. Anything basically on sexandrelationshiphealing.com is free. The things on seeking integrity, the support, we have support sessions, 25 and 50-minute support sessions. We've got work groups, including the one I was just mentioning, Sex Addiction 101 Level 1, which is starting on Saturday. It's a 90-minute live facilitated group for men, up to 25 men via Zoom, but that starts working through the Sex Addiction 101 workbook. Scott has started recently a Porn Addiction 101 Level 1 work group, and it's going really well because there's a number of guys that are relate to online but don't relate to live person. And so having that group, and we're going to start another one of those mid-October, that too is listed. And one more offering on that platform with work groups is the Couples Healing from Betrayal workshop that starts October 7th. Dr. Susie LeBrock leads that, and it is a 2-hour once a week for 6 weeks. It'll be the last offering this year. I know that for sure. So if you are in a coupleship and you have struggled with betrayal, this is not just about sex addiction, it's cheating, infidelity. This could be a good group for you. Grieving losses together, communication, and what is healthy sexuality for the two of you. So all of those are on the Seeking Integrity site. And I invite you to take a look at those. But back to the new drop-in groups. That was the long route, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a long way to get what I asked for, but okay.
So I know, but like all of these great resources. So the new, there's PATH, PATH, and I won't remember what exactly it stands for, but it's internal family systems. So there's a new partner group that, well, actually, let me start with, on Tuesdays, Joe Savidra, who has done some men's drop-in groups for us in the past, is going to be hosting at 10 a.m. Pacific time, a men's drop-in group from the internal family system lens. So there's information on sexandrelationshiphealing.com about that. And then one of his colleagues, who also is doing it from an internal family systems, has a new partner group that will be starting at 8 a.m. Pacific time. For an hour on Wednesdays, and they will be there weekly doing these drop-in groups. So this is an opportunity for you to plug into those as well. So I think I got it all. Did I forget something?
No, but internal family systems is a really cool approach. If you don't know anything about it, I suggest checking those out next week. David Fawcett also has started a chemsex support group Tuesdays at 5 p.m.
Thank you. That I knew. I was like, there's one more. And yes, so he was doing that on intherooms.com, but that has now been moved to Tuesday nights on our platform. So for co-occurring sex and chemical addiction, that's an opportunity for you to check that out too. So okay. So you have a little presentation?
I did. I want to talk about arousal templates today.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
This is we do a lecture on this in both the sex addiction and porn addiction work groups, and this is like one of my favorite classes to teach. And normally, these are 90-minute sessions, or those are 90-minute sessions, and we always run over by 15 or 20 minutes. So there's no way I can walk you through all this. I'm just going to blow through it a million miles an hour and give you the short version, and hopefully you'll have some questions. So arousal templates are exactly what they sound like. They're the map in our brain of what turns us on sexually. It's a map of our patterns of arousal. Elements in the arousal template are kind of linked within a chain. One element leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next. We don't really know exactly how arousal templates form, but we've got some pretty good ideas. We don't know everything that feeds into an arousal template, but we know a lot of it. And one of the interesting things about arousal templates is the basic core elements are in place really early in life, usually between the ages of 4 and 6. The core elements of our arousal template are in place, which is really interesting. Like if little boys like little boys, they're going to like little boys, or grown men when they get older, and vice versa. That kind of stuff, it's entrenched. We think it's mostly genetic, but we also think there's a lot of environment that can go to it. Arousal templates are built, we think, through 3 ways: genetics, learned, and cultural. Genetics, the gender we're attracted to, the facial symmetry we're attracted to, things like that we think are genetic. Learned, this is an experience that can build on the genetic code. We learn through what we call classical conditioning. We draw energy from salient experiences in our life. So we experience something, and good or bad, and it enters our arousal template. Trauma can enter our arousal template. If I had an abusive babysitter who used to spank me, but I found her attractive, but she was mean, probably some version of that's going to get into my arousal template. Things like that. And then cultural, magazines, TVs, movies, they tell us what's attractive and what's not attractive. Now, that can be overruled by innate things. My friend Charlie, I've told this story on him before. He's a chubby chaser. The whole world's telling him, he grew up when Twiggy was all the thing. And Twiggy was a model, and she weighed about 80 pounds. She was Kate Moss before Kate Moss. And Charlie had a science teacher who weighed like 400 pounds and had the biggest crush on his 400-pound science teacher, because that somehow got into his arousal template. No idea how, but it gets in there. So, arousal templates cover everything: physical characteristics like eye color, height, hair color, race, height, age, weight, all of it. Emotional characteristics are part of our arousal template. Kindness, being controlling. Some people find that attractive. Being needy. Some people find that attractive. Places, certain bars can get into arousal templates. Strip clubs can get into an arousal template. Shopping malls, any place crowded, beaches, whatever. Processes. Sometimes drug addicts find, particularly if they're substance and sex addicts, meaning they combine like meth and sex, needles, getting blood drawn, getting a shot, highly sexually arousing to them. I hate needles, but hey, it's not my arousal template. Smoking can be an arousal thing. Objects, fetishes center around objects, usually high heels, leather, masks, things like that. sounds, whatever noise your phone makes when you're swiping left or right, or getting a like on your, that can be highly arousing for people. Visuals, obviously, sexy images, billboards, Instagram, dating sites, pornography, things like that. Behaviors can be highly arousing. That can turn, the wink, the nod, the light touch on the shoulder, somebody touches you lightly on the knee. That can be a real turn on for people, because somebody's expressing interest. Also, being ignored can be a turn on for people. I find a lot of men actually like women who ignore them when they're pursuing the woman. I don't know why, but they do. The interesting thing about arousal templates is they're pretty fixed, but they're also not fixed. And sex addicts and porn addicts in particular find this out as they go. As our addictions escalate, and we've talked about tolerance and escalation, things will enter our arousal template. And we find ourselves interested in things that are usually rougher or more taboo or more hardcore or more intense. We're seeking more intensity because we need that extra dopamine hit. So we just discover new elements in our arousal template. And that's actually what we're doing. We're discovering elements that were in the arousal template already. We're not really adding anything that wasn't there. I'm a gay man. I am 100% gay. You could show me porn of naked women from now until doomsday, and I am never going to get aroused. It's not going to happen. But if I was even slightly bisexual, it would wake that element up. So, kinks and fetishes, they get woken up, they get uncovered. They're latently there and they get uncovered. And people are like, oh my goodness. Trans porn, for usually trauma-based stuff, almost always we can trace back to trauma with the guys I talked to who are interested in trans porn, meaning men with breasts and the male equipment. Trans females. It can be a real turn on, and almost always that's trauma based, and we can almost always trace it back to a trauma element. But it's one of the things that gets uncovered for a lot of guys if they're looking at porn, which brings me to the next point is a lot of people in their addiction, particularly porn addiction, find themselves looking at, fantasizing about, acting on things that violate their values, or not just like their marriage vows, but just their values in general, or their vision of who they are. I'm a straight man. Why am I looking at, gay porn, or why am I acting out with men, or why am I acting out with trans prostitutes, things like that. Arousal templates can get really, really rigid. They can get maladaptive. They can get inappropriate. They can get illegal. They can violate your values. They can violate your boundaries. They can violate other people's values and boundaries. So a lot of people come into recovery and they've been engaging in behaviors that they feel tremendous shame about. And they really want those elements of their arousal template to go away. Now here's the bad news. It doesn't work like that. Once we uncover an element in an arousal template, it stays uncovered. It's not going away. If I discover that I'm into trans women, oh, guess what? That's part of my arousal template. The good news is it doesn't have to rule my life. I don't have to act on it. There are plenty of, most people are to some degree bisexual. Most people identify as mostly straight, or mostly heterosexual, or just all the way. But what they mean is they're mostly straight, or they're mostly gay, or they're, so you can uncover that element and it can bother you or not, but you don't have to act on it. If I'm mostly gay and I suddenly find that I'm attracted to Tammy, I don't have to act on it, because I'm already in a relationship and I'm, so we have a choice. We always have a choice about what we do with elements of our arousal template. We don't have a choice about what's in our arousal template. There was a period in my life where if you had given me a pill to make me straight, I would have taken that pill so fast. Because it was not fun to be a little gay kid growing up in Indiana in the 70s. But now I don't care. I wouldn't take the pill, but back then I would have. So can arousal templates be changed? The answer is no. There are therapists out there who try to do what we call gay conversion therapy. That actually does more harm. Yeah, but that actually does more harm than good because it's really shaming. Usually the individual comes in and they're feeling shame already about their same-sex attractions because of their family or their religion or whatever. And then you're feeding the shame and trying to pray the guy away. It just doesn't work. It's actually illegal to do reparative therapy or gay conversion therapy on minors in it was just 1 or 2 states, and I think we're in double figures now. It's actually illegal to even try it. So adults can still go, try it if they want, but it doesn't work. So what do we do when we have an element in our arousal template that we don't want there? We just don't play with it. We don't compartmentalize it and hide it and pretend it's not there. We don't feel shame about it. Our job or Seeking Integrity's job as therapists is not to, make a gay person straight or vice versa, or make somebody with the kink no longer have that kink. We don't have that power. No therapist can do that for you. What we can do is help you feel okay with your arousal template and accept it and learn to live with it, whether you choose to act on it or not. And if you're going to choose not to act on it, we encourage you, we give you some tools, which are, don't masturbate to fantasies about it. Don't look at porn of it. Don't hire a prostitute and act it out, because that's kind of burning the pathway in your brain and giving it more power. So now the real problem, particularly with porn addicts and a lot of sex addicts, is, as we up the intensity, these really outrageous behaviors that we feel tremendous shame about, they become our standard for sex. And it can take quite a while to get the brain to reset to where normal, whatever normal is, sex, will do it for us. So anyway, there's lots more to this, but I'm already talked for almost 20 minutes. So I'm going to cut this off, but if you have questions about arousal templates, I'd love to hear them because I find this fascinating. Okay.
So I'm going to skip around in the questions because I think the second one pertains to what you were sharing. What implication does it have for BDSM? So I think that's an often wondered about question.
Yeah, this is one of the things that gets uncovered. It's latently in the arousal template. It gets uncovered a lot. Any kind of kink and fetish, it's gonna, if it's latently there, and you look at porn, you're eventually gonna stumble across it. You're gonna have a big dopamine adrenaline rush, and it's gonna pow. It's in your arousal template. BDSM is like any other kink or fetish. A difference between a kink and a fetish. A kink is something you engage in to spice up your sex life a little bit. You can take it or leave it, but it's kind of fun. And if your partner's into it, it can really be a lot of fun for you. A fetish is something that is a primary element of your arousal template. Like if I have a BDSM fetish, I need some elements of BDSM if I'm going to enjoy sex. So fetish is sort of a kink on steroids. Arousal templates with BDSM, it comes from somewhere, probably not genetic. It's probably more learned through trauma or some behavior as a child or something you saw on TV or in a movie or something along that lines that it embedded something in you that later when you became sexually aware, this became a turn on. It's always going to be in your arousal template if it's in there. What you do with that is up to you. Again, and if you have deep shame about BDSM and it's not to the level of a fetish where you need it for arousal, you can probably live without it. But you can also explore it. You can accept that that's in your arousal template and you can explore it in safe ways. Dr. Rob has done some articles about kink and fetish. and BDSM is always covered, and safe and sane and consensual, I think is the catchphrase. There's always a safe word, and so you can stop if it's too much, or and it's not always, I mean, people do get, there is pain, there is an exchange of pain often in BDSM, but it is consensual and it's safe, and it's sane. So I don't know if I answered that question or not.
No, that's fair. And I think it's one of those, here's a framework. There are times when partners feel like they are manipulated into doing something, whether it's BDSM or whatever, because if I don't, and I'm going to use heterosexual, if I, the female, don't do whatever it is he was asking me to do, he's going to go off and do that with somebody else. And so unfortunately so it needs to be consensual, but not the manipulated consent of like, well, I really want to do this, or I'm going to go do it with somebody else. So it needs to be two consenting adults who are choosing to do this, not coercion, by one or the other. But I mean, if somebody wants to try something, have at it. So.
And by the way, it really important that couples communicate. Like if I have a secret kink, and I never tell my partner, what good does that do either of us? I might as well share it. I might as well say, Tami, I'd like to, tie your hands with some nice silk scarves. I'm sorry, Tami's my example.
It's all fine.
And tickle you with a feather. I think that would be really fun, and it would turn me on. And Tami then has the right to say no, or well, I guess we could try it, or I think that would be fun. But at least we know, and most spouses, without manipulation, will be willing to try, anything that's not going to physically hurt, or isn't just like too outrageous or whatever. But tickling with the feather or something, most spouses be okay, let's try it, and you might both find that you really have a good time with that, and couples should share their secret sexual fantasies with each other. So you can try them. If it doesn't work, great. Okay, let's move on to something else. But you can really spice up your sex life by sharing secret fantasies and giving them a whirl. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And I think you're exactly right. And too often people don't communicate. It's like, they do sex. Like I had somebody that was reaching out and they were talking about intimacy. And I was like, like they automatically go, the intimacy is sex. And I'm like, no, intimacy is, you going, hey, I want to, use a feather and silk scarf. That you're being vulnerable. You're showing, something about you at a deeper level. That's intimacy. What, sex is sex. It's the communication. And, so I mentioned the couples healing from betrayal workshop, and part of it is communication, because that's such a key part. And people, Kristen Snowden, does a lot of webinars, and she co-authored a book with Scott, Life Anonymous, really good 12-step book. But she uses the story I'm telling myself, and so the story I'm telling myself, when Scott says, hey, I want to try that, is like he's wanting to connect with me. He wants to try something different. He's not thinking about going to the strip club down the street. I mean, like, this is a good thing. So he's at least sharing. So those communication tools are critically important. But it's scary, especially when there's been betrayal and there's hurt, and you're going like, I don't trust this person at all. So it's navigating that safe space, for each of you, that where you're able to to be willing to share, but also not be going, oh, that's the stupidest thing, or what is, what are you nuts, for suggesting that, it has to be a safe place to share. I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure about that one or whatever, but I'm not just shutting you down and telling you you're a horrible person for even asking,
And, a lot of times this stuff never gets brought up because I'm afraid, that Tami will judge me if I tell her I want to get spanked with one of those flogging things.
Okay.
Clearly, I'm not a BDSM person.
I was going to say those flogging things.
But guys who do that, so they'll end up with hiring a dominatrix and, you know, a hotel room and usually there's drugs involved and a flogger. That's what it's called. Thank you very much. Who knew? I didn't, but you did. Thank you. So they never tell their wife, and then they have this horrible secret that comes between them and their relationship, and then they're lying about where the bruises came from, and eventually the wife catches on, and it's like, no, if you just said it out loud, maybe your wife would indulge you, or she would say, okay, you can get this done. I'm not into it, but you can pay to have this done, but here are the boundaries that I'm okay with, and here are the boundaries that I'm not okay with, and things like that. And couples can negotiate, and that's a good thing, as long as Tami hit it earlier, as long as you're not manipulating. If you don't let me do this, I will leave you. That is manipulation. If you don't let me do this, I will cut you off and you will be poor. Manipulation. If you don't let me do this, I will leave with the kids. That's manipulation. Don't do that. Not a nice thing to do. Not good for your relationship. So yeah, but communicate, please.
And not good for your integrity too. So just so you know, like, I'm not paying any attention to the chat. So if you've got questions, please put them in the Q&A. That's where they're going. So we have a question. We have two questions. How do you differentiate a love for casual sex and or a high sex drive from sex addiction?
Okay. This is a really sex addiction is like any other addiction. Hey, I loved scotch, but I also was an alcoholic. I loved casual sex. I was also a sex addict. The criteria for any addiction, basically, if you look in the DSM-5, which is a diagnostic manual, they list 11 things, but they basically boil down to 3 things. Preoccupation to the point of obsession. If I am thinking about casual sex or porn or whatever all the time, to the point of not thinking about other things that are important, like, oh, I don't know, my job and my family, and, school or whatever, I'm preoccupied to the point of obsession. The second thing is loss of control, which is usually evidenced by multiple failed attempts to quit. If I had, porn addicts are notorious for collect and delete. I amass thousands of videos and then I feel bad, so I delete it. I'm not going to ever look at porn again. And 2 days later, I'm collecting porn again. These are failed attempts to quit. Alcoholics, I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to drink today at 5 o'clock, blah, 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 blah. That's the second criteria. And the third criteria is directly related negative consequences. This is the same as with booze. If I know people who go home every night and they have a cocktail after work, and it relaxes them, and they hang out with their spouse and they have a nice dinner and they watch some TV and then they go to bed. Other people go home and have a cocktail. They've been thinking about it for 12 hours straight. They have a cocktail, and then once they start, they can't stop. And then they scream at their wife, and their relationship is on the rocks, and then they're hungover in the morning, so they do a terrible job with their presentation at work and get fired. That's alcoholism. Sex addiction is the same way. When it's running my life and creating problems and I can't control it, and loss of control is I try to quit but can't, and also I'm only going to go online for 15 minutes, and 4 hours later I'm still online. Loss of control. So that's the difference between casual sex and even a high sex drive. And sex addiction is not about sex. Let me just make this very clear. Sex addiction has nothing to do with sex, except that's how we act it out. It's about escape. Every addiction is about emotional escape. I don't want to feel something, and I don't know how to reach out to another human being to get my needs met. So I reach out to something. I know what the response is. I know what I get when I drink a 6-pack. I know what I get when I eat the entire chocolate cake. I know what I get with porn or a prostitute. I get this temporary emotional escape. So that's why I do it. And usually, again, this comes from childhood. I personally learned early in childhood that if I took my emotional problems to my father, it was like talking to a wall. Love my dad, emotionally absent. And if I took them to my mother, it was going to be like wacko. I didn't know if she was going to scream at me, scream at the neighbors, scream at the moon. I didn't know. So I just kept my mouth shut and read books and played fantasy games until I discovered masturbation and alcohol and marijuana and other things so that I could escape. Tammy, did you want to add to that at all? I know you.
No, like, do you hear an echo at moments?
Not really, but.
Good. Okay. Cause like there's moments when I hear an echo and I don't know. Anyway, so I can so relate because I was like coming home and having a drink. I was like, if the drink is this big, then maybe one drink. But yeah, no, I did put in the chat the self-test on seekingintegrity.com under resources. There's a self-test, and that's a really good indicator. I think a lot of it, the easy thing is, are there lies and secrets? Are you telling yourself lies that like, oh, I just have a high sex drive? I can't tell you how many people call me, and I have a high sex drive. Well, you find out, like Scott said, all the behavior behind it.
Yeah.
It's not a high sex drive. I have a need to escape. I have a need to numb out. I'm compartmentalizing this. I'm not succeeding at work because I'm so focused on porn, or I'm going to get in trouble with work because I'm doing porn on my work computer. I'm whatever. There's a long list. I had somebody that called recently, and this was a spouse, in their 60s and been married a long time. And he's absolutely going, I'm going to do cannabis and like nonstop, and I'm watching porn and I don't care. And I thought, wow. So his life is now, down to this little tiny world, like, sitting in a little room by himself doing this, porn, masturbation, and cannabis. That's his world. And I thought, wow, missing out on so much. So I think part of it for me is, if this is the focus of your life, that's very different than I'm engaged in healthy conversations with people. I have an active life, and yeah, I like sex, but I have a great relationship with the person I'm having sex with. It's not just, anonymous sex, hookup sex, whatever. Those are very different things. So, but a lot of people do I just have a high sex drive. Okay, next question. This is my spouse was watching stepmom, stepson porn on MILFy hookup sites. He also was calling and texting my cousin's wife and her daughter. His mother died when he was 14. Wondering about this as an incest element is really concerning to me.
Okay, my spouse was watching stepmom, stepson porn on MILFy hookup sites. He's also calling and texting my cousin's wife and her daughter. His mother died when he was 14. Wondering, yeah, there's a lot of concerning behavior in there. And yeah, I mean, look, your mother dies when you're 14. That is deeply traumatic. And yes, it can enter the arousal template. I don't know where the incest element would come from, but yeah, and there's a lot of I love MILFy hookup sites. There's a lot of incest porn online. I'm not going to lie to you. There's lots of incest porn online. It's, again, if it's even a tiny bit in the arousal template, latently, porn will wake it up. And then, tolerance and escalation build with any addiction. The first time I got drunk, I drank most of the bottle of vodka, but the first time most people get drunk, or Bacardi, sorry, they have like 1 or 2 or 3 beers and they get a little loopy and they have a good time. And, 6 months or a year later, they're up to a 6-pack, and, and then they're switching to like wine or vodka and then maybe they're stealing some oxys from grandma's medicine cabinet, her pain pills, and they're popping those, and then they're crushing them and snorting them because they get a bigger bump with that. And then they wake up one day and they've got a needle in their arm, and they're like, how did this happen? Nobody says, I think I'd like to be a heroin addict and just shoots up. That doesn't happen. It starts out with beer or pot or something, and we develop tolerance, and the addiction escalates. And the same thing happens with sex, and particularly porn. Escalation is just easy to see because we end up watching stuff that violates our values, that violates our partner's values. That's disturbing from a community standards standpoint. I don't know how old the cousin's daughter is, but cousin's wife and her daughter, that's disturbing behavior. and really disturbing to a betrayed partner, I would think. So yeah, and this is just it sounds like to me a porn addiction that's run amok, and opened up really unpleasant for you as the betrayed partner elements of an arousal template.
And I'm having a gut reaction to this. So like I'm feeling danger, I got to tell you. And so Dr. Rob has used at times, you know, like the mother dying at 14, that's a red herring. It's like, oh, feel sorry for me. And like, I get to, like, regardless of why, this is problematic behavior. And I don't know how your cousin is feeling about this. I don't know the nature of the text, but I would be concerned. We get calls regularly for people. I'm assuming the daughter is underage, so I'm making that assumption, but we get calls all the time for people that have charges filed against them because something was uncalled for. If he's been watching porn and he's got this fantasy about this, I mean, the next step would be, oh, well, the cousin and daughter are, texting with me. They must want me to be, in their house, or I don't know, I'm making up, but I agree with you, be concerned, and him not addressing the problematic behavior would be really, I would be concerned. So hopefully you're joining the betrayed partner groups on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. There was one today. There's another one tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. But get support for you, set healthy boundaries for you. And I think it's okay to say, I'm really concerned about you because, your actions, too many people all of a sudden, just like Scott was saying, wake up with a needle in your arm going, how did this happen? So when the cops are knocking on the door, I've downloaded child porn, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff where the feds are showing up at the door, taking the computer, and then now there's charges. I mean, it gets bad fast. Take care of you, and I hope he gets some help. So
yeah, and just I would, AA has a saying: if you go to the barbershop every day, eventually you're going to get a haircut. And if you're looking at certain kinds of porn every day, you may want to act on it, and you may act on it, and you may, it could be really, really bad. Tammy hit it on the head.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Is it possible the arousal template never escalated and stayed the same? Mine said there were 2 things he found arousing and that was it. Is he lying?
I have no idea. I don't know. If you've got an arousal template and there's a couple things in it and they're really strong and you never expose yourself to anything else, yeah, probably it could stay the same. I mean, I think 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago, before, the internet, people's arousal templates were not as broad as they are today because people were not exposed to things that they are today. There are things on the internet that just I'm like, wow, that turns people on. Okay, diaper porn. I'm sorry, gross. That's me. But there are people who get really turned on by that. And now there's a whole community built around it. And if that is in your arousal template and you happen to stumble across it or hear some jerk like me talking about it in a webinar like this, you're like, oh, I might have to go, it's like if you've got a little dopamine rush when I said diaper porn, it's probably in your arousal template. You don't have to act on it, but it's probably there. So yeah, I mean, an arousal template never escalating, always staying the same. In today's world, that's probably unlikely, but I don't think it's impossible. And I have no idea if he's lying. I mean, it would require a lot more exploration.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and you mentioned it too with the internet. Like there are some crimes that have gone down because you can just go see it or do whatever on the internet, so you don't have to go, peeking in your neighbor's windows. I mean, the peeping Tom. Like now you're just voyeuring in the chat room or whatever. You can pay cam girls, cam boys to do whatever. So it's changed how things are, but I think you're exactly right too, that things that you would have never thought of or heard of, now there's a group for that, so people can, and some things, if they safely participate and it's all okay, that's fine. I always think, with diaper fetishes or whatever, there's often, trauma at the base of that. What happened, that made that so arousing? So, I think it's good to explore. It won't change the arousal template, but, like it, because you said earlier too, just, don't do this, don't do that. And I was like, addicts, we don't know how to not do whatever it is that we were doing. So, if you go, oh, that's impossible, it's not. We're both living proof of it. You just don't have the tools to not, go act out on your, whatever the acting out behavior is, but you can learn things, things can get different, things can change. I've mentioned at the beginning of the group, a whole bunch of resources, like the work groups. Scott leads, some of them, but other of our, staff and we have other people, leading those as well. But those are practical tools to learn how, what's an inner circle behavior, what's a middle circle behavior, what's an outer circle behavior, what do I want to do more of, what do I need to go, oh, I need to call my sponsor, what do you need to do to be able to not do the things that are problematic in your life? So and then somebody added to, is it okay to ask SA husband about his arousal template? How would you answer that?
Is it okay to ask my sex addict husband about his arousal template? Sure. I mean, I think couples should communicate about sex. What turns you on? Here's what turns me on. What turns you on? Maybe we should expand our repertoire. That one thing that you like to do, though, I'm not into. So let's take that one out of the repertoire. Now, sex addicts are, like addicts in general, are notoriously good at lying and keeping secrets and covering up and compartmentalizing, especially when we have shame about something. So if I'm feeling shame about a certain aspect of my arousal template and I'm an addict, I'm active addict or new to recovery, you're probably not going to get a complete answer from me. You might find out a few things that you didn't know. We do arousal templates, like I said, in both the sex addiction work group, and we're doing it in the porn addiction work group too. Not level 1 stuff. You got to stick around for level 2 for those. But I want my guys to understand their arousal template. I want them to know everything that's there. I want them to know how they feel about everything that's there. I want them to know what they're okay acting on and what they're not okay acting on. And after somebody honestly and completely and fully does that exercise, you may get an honest answer. But unless somebody's actually done that work, you're probably not going to get an honest answer.
I also think it would be, what is your motivation? If your motivation is, I just want to understand, and he's in recovery and we're to this point and we're looking to build our, communication skills, and we're looking, to figure out what is healthy sex for the two of us. That's very different than, I want to know what he's aroused by, what has he been looking at on porn or whatever, so I think making sure you have support to check your motives, like with 12-step, we always check our motives. What are our motives for doing whatever it is we're doing? So if you are really looking at, I want to build our relationship together and I want to better understand, and I'm willing to share what my arousal template is too, great. If it's I just want to figure out if it's whatever it is.
I want to know what I should be worried about. That's probably not a good reason to ask.
Yes.
There is a great book called A Billion Wicked Thoughts. It's by Ogas, O-G-A-S, and Sai, S-A-I, Gaddam, G-A-D-D-A-M. They did a study. They studied 40 or I think it was 400 million internet searches for representing 2 million people. And they wanted to know what people were looking at online, and they found that people are looking at porn online. So something like 13% of all internet searches and a higher percentage of downloads were pornographic related, but they paid attention to what people were searching for. So if you want to know what's in people's arousal templates, pick up A Billion Wicked Thoughts. It's actually a fascinating read. It's really funny. It's smart. It's very well researched, and it's just fascinating. So A Billion Wicked Thoughts, highly recommended.
I'll have to read it. Next question. I
Oh,
sent
you
my
haven't read that
husband.
yet?
I have not read that.
Oh my
but
God,
yeah,
it's awesome.
yeah, I'm going to have to read it. So
Okay.
I sent my husband to see his 98-year-old sick mother. My problem is he is now down very near to his last affair partner. I'm trying my best not to worry that he will contact her. Was I stupid for not going with him?
Why don't you take that one first?
I don't think you were stupid for not going with him. He's going to do what he's going to do. You're not his parent. He's going to see his parent. So I guess, what is his accountability plan? What does he have in place? Is he calling his sponsor? Does he have an online appointment with his therapist? What is he doing? You know, where is he in the process? If they just stopped the affair last week, and yeah, I would be more concerned, you know, but if he's really working on doing life differently, if he's gaining some skills to be able to do life differently, then it's his problem. So Scott and I both had substance use disorder issues. You know what? The world is freaking full of alcohol. If I want to drink, believe me, I mean, I could walk, you know, and I would walk the mile to the store to get whatever it is I need, you know, like, so we have to learn to do our life differently, despite, you know, what is out there, you know, for the guys that, you know, have porn addiction, or women, there's plenty of women that have porn addiction too, you know, you like, how do you function in the world without a phone or technology? I mean, it's, you know, like, we have to learn to do things differently, and so that we can have our integrity despite all the stuff that's, you know, I've shared this before, so this isn't a secret. I have, you know, I had struggled with food addiction. Guess what? I've got a fridge, I've got a pantry, you know, I had to learn to navigate that in a healthy way for me. So first of all, anytime a partner is saying I'm stupid, like, please, you're not. You know, you are looking to rebuild trust with a husband who has betrayed you. So what do you need to do to take care of you? I'm thrilled you're here. You know, but you are not the problem, he is. What has he done to set up safety for himself, you know, in this trip? And there are meetings online and all over I can go anywhere and go to a meeting, or now they're all virtual. I can go online. So if I have my stuff set up, you know, I'm going to be fine.
I don't know, this is probably close to 10 years ago now. I got asked to speak at a sexual recovery group conference, an SCA conference in LA, and it was in my old stomping grounds on the same street that I used to cruise up and down to pick up prostitutes on. That's Lily.
Hi, Lily.
I haven't seen Lily before. She's the big cat. So I knew that I was going to be literally driving down the street that I used to drive down for 8 hours at a pop, looking for the right prostitute. You know, again, sex addiction, not about sex, about escape. I was in what we called bubble for hours and hours and hours, just fantasizing about sex, thinking about sex, just getting out of my head is what I was doing. It was as if I was drunk, and I drove almost as badly because I was not paying attention to driving. I was in my sexual fantasy in my head. I knew I was going to be in this area. I knew I was going to be on this road. I knew it was going to be triggering. So I called a couple friends beforehand and said, okay, you know, I'm leaving for LA. I'm going to call you when I hit this certain street. And then I would call them, okay, now I'm going down this street and I'm going straight to the meeting room and I'm not stopping. I will call you when I get to the meeting room. And, you know, and I literally checked in at every step of that journey on the way there and leaving from there, because I knew I wasn't early in recovery, but it was kind of the first time I'd been back to that area in sobriety. And I knew it was going to be difficult. And it was difficult, but I didn't act out. And I'm proud of myself for not acting out. It was a kind of a banner moment in recovery where it's like, I survived that because I used the tools of recovery. So yeah, I'm curious. Tami asked, what safeguards does he have in place? Is he calling his sponsor? Is he doing this? Is he doing that? You know, there are meetings everywhere. There are meetings online. He has support if he chooses to use it. I hope that he chooses to use it. I like that you trust him enough to let him go and not go with him. You trust yourself enough to know, I don't want to go. I don't want to be there for that. So you get to stay home. He gets to go. But yeah, and if you're feeling worried, call him or text him. Hey, just wanted to check in. I think that's okay. Tammy, do you think it's okay to just say, hey, I'm feeling squirrely knowing that your affair partner's down there. I just want to check in and make sure you're okay and see if you need any support. I mean, frame it that way. Don't.
I think that would be a good way.
But,
right. I think that could be a good way of framing it. But yeah. And it would be interesting if he, says anything to you, like if he goes, I needed to call my sponsor today, great. I'm like, I don't know if you guys do check-ins, if you kind of check in with each other about, where he's at, where you're at with things on your relationship. It's okay to say, I was triggered, I was thinking about this and, I want to trust you and I want, so I'm trusting you to have the skills and tools in place to do, what's right. And I realize that, my fear is my fear and I'm owning that. But, like at the end of the day, I only have control over me, my actions and reactions. I can't control anybody else's behavior as much as I would want. Believe me, there's a bunch of them I want to. But so I, and it's, I'm going to go visit my parents and I love my parents, but I'm going to go visit my parents, in a few weeks and like it's a whole different thing. Scott and I talk about this too. So there's all of those things and he may be triggered. So yeah, I really hope he's taking care of himself, as well as, addressing aging parents and sick parents and things like that too. So, but you are here. I'm grateful. Keep plugging into the betrayed partner stuff. Get support for you. You got this. You're resilient. So
yeah, I want to say two things to the addicts who are on here right now. If your betrayed partner calls you, you're in that situation. Of course, she's going to be worried. So say your response is, "Of course you're worried. I understand completely. I betrayed you. I cheated on you. Of course you would be worried. Here's what happened today. I spent 4 hours with my mother. I walked out to get coffee. Somebody there triggered me. And here's what I did about it. I reached out to my sponsor." Don't say, yes, if you were triggered, say, yes, I was triggered, but also say, here is what I did about it. That's what your partner wants to hear, is what you did about it. And don't say, no, I wasn't triggered if you were, and don't say, yes, I was triggered if you weren't, because guys sometimes will say, yes, I was triggered, and they'll make up some story about what that's a lie. Don't do it. Tell the truth, and then tell what you did about the truth. And show some empathy. First show some empathy. I understand why you're nervous right now. I totally get it. I cheated on you. And then answer the question honestly. So yeah.
So
if your wife will know if you're lying. I mean, she is in tune to lies right now. You're not going to get away with it. So don't do it. Sorry, done.
No, it's all good. So, okay. So next question. Is it common for addicts to lie about being virgins? Why would they lie about having sex before, especially if male? So I'm not sure, is this lying about not being a virgin or being a virgin? Because
look, addicts lie, number one. I think it's about saying you're a virgin when you're not, which I don't know any male that's ever done that. But, I have a friend who shared about this in a meeting the other day, and it was an AA meeting, but lying applies to all addicts. He had made up a story when he was 16 about his first sexual encounter. And he got sober when he was in his late 30s, and a couple years sober, he was with a batch of guys and they were talking about losing their virginity. And he told the lie because he'd been telling that lie for 25 years at that point. It was truth to him until he heard it coming out of his mouth with a batch of guys that he was rigorously honest with. And he was like, oh my God, that story's not true.
Mm.
You know, I mean, why did he, I mean, you know, he was in his 40s at that point. Why was he still making up stories about when he was 16? It's because addicts, we lie and we believe our lies. We lie to ourselves loud enough and often enough that we start to believe our own BS. Now, why we lie about certain things, I don't know. I would hear things coming out of my mouth the first year of recovery, when I was realizing that I was, you know, I had always thought I was a really honest person until I got in recovery and started paying attention. And something, I mean, sharing in a 12-step meeting, the one place where you should absolutely feel comfortable and almost compelled to be totally honest. And I would hear some stupid lie come out of my mouth about, you know, I don't like chocolate cake, you know, or something just really ridiculous and patently false. And I would just be, 30 seconds later, I would go, I don't know why I said that. That was a lie. And I would have to correct my lie. I wasn't getting anything out of it. I wasn't making anybody think more or less of me. I mean, it was accomplishing nothing, except I was in such a lying habit that I would lie about anything, anytime, anywhere, to anyone. Yeah, and it was a
Well,
hard
this
habit.
one, yeah, I mean, our clinical director says, tell the truth and tell it faster. And it isn't just about, you know, the addictive behavior. It's about everything, because just as you say, it, you know, it's so pervasive. But we lie to ourselves. You know, we're, you know, like the story you shared about, you know, 25 years later, he's telling the same story that he was telling. What purpose does it serve? So to me, I was looking at this and going, I wonder what purpose it serves. Does it make it be, oh, you know, you're so special to me that, like, now we're going to do this. I mean, so there, to me, there's a lie, but it's also like, what does he get out of it? You know, that now I'm giving this gift to you, or performance anxiety. Now I don't have to have performance anxiety because, hey, it's my first time. You know, I don't know. That would be something to explore. But, you know, to me, it's like there's something behind that. So what does lying make you feel?
You know, I think, and the next question is about compulsive lying. I think lying is most often tied to shame, whether it's just regular lying or compulsive lying. Compulsive lying is like addictive lying. But I think it's about, I have shame about something, so I tell a lie ostensibly to make you think something else about me, or to distract you from that, or, you know, I don't want you to see the real me, so I just tell lies. And I think compulsive lying is this, you know, a really extreme fear of being seen and vulnerable and heard and known. But lying in general, I think, is also, you know, lying as part of addiction is keeping the addiction alive. We have to lie to ourselves to make our behavior okay. We have to lie to our families and our spouses and our partners to keep them from trying to intervene, send us to treatment, take our booze away, whatever, you know, put a net nanny on the computer. We don't want you to put a net nanny on the computer. We want free and unfettered access. So we lie and we cover up and we keep secrets. That's a lot of lying related to addiction. But I think this just kind of random lying is more about shame, I would think. I don't know if you have thoughts on that. Not my area.
I do. I was thinking it was posturing. That was the word that came to me. It's like, it's posturing. But, you know, when we talk about the 24-hour rule, it's like, you know, it's okay for me to go, Scott, when I said that, I was lying. I didn't want you to be hurt. I was afraid of your reaction. Like, I can give the reason why I didn't tell you the truth, but here's what the truth is, you know, so I can come back and shift that. And a lot of it is, you know, fear of, you know, what the negative response, you know, could be. But when I think of compulsive liars, unfortunately, they have faces to them, because I know some, and it's just like, they lie about stuff that doesn't, you know, and I think everybody else knows, you know, so they think that we don't all know, and we all go, that is so ridiculous, but it's their choice. Sometimes it's a choice, to do that because they've been called on it and they don't change. So all good, but but in recovery, we can't do that. That's what Scott was sharing is we have to learn to be truthful, with ourselves and with the world. He and I were talking not too long ago about, he tells his sponsees that, if they give you $1 extra at McDonald's, you got to go back and give them the $1. And he said, and it happened to him. So he had to go do that. And I was like, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. I can't tell you, how often that has happened. And it's usually like at Walmart where it's a pain to go back to customer service. But, I have to, I have to, like I know, even if nobody else knows, I know, and it's not okay with me. And that's just a little example, but it really is about, it is about being honest. And if I keep that secret, that's going to be the stuff that, is rotting away in me. And I'll know I'm a liar and I'm a cheater and I'm all of those things. And so then it distances me from all the people, because if you really knew the underneath, you wouldn't want to know me. So I immediately push you away because I'm holding on to that toxicity. So anyway, so we are out of time and I'm going to go get a haircut. So I will. So thanks for letting me join you tonight. So
well, thanks for joining.
Pleasure to do it.
I love doing these with you.
Yeah, it's fun to do. We get to do them regularly, but intermittently. So
yes. So all right, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for the great questions. Always appreciate that. David will be back next week, so you'll have him back, and tune into the new groups we've got, and reach out to us if you have any questions.
Yeah, seekingintegrity.com and sexandrelationshiphealing.com. So join those. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Night everyone.